Hi, I'm Chike Coleman. Welcome back to another issue of Real Reviews Cinematic Underground. But this time it's going to be a little bit different. Today I have a very, very special guest that I've been trying to get to for a long time, Mr. Sanford Hess of the Art Theater. It's so great to have you here.
Oh, it's great to be here.
I mean, we've been working at this for months trying to get you in, so...
It's been a busy time, though.
So I just want to know what attracted you to the Art Theater in the first place. We'll get into the history in a minute.
Well, I had been to the theater as a patron first.
Okay.
So, you know, like everybody else, you walk around the corner and then you see the cool neon and you walk in and it's the old-time lobby and single screen theater. It's just a great vibe. So as a patron, I loved it. And then when I decided I wanted to open a theater as a business, it was just a very easy decision for me to try to shoot for the art.
Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong, but the Art Theater opened in 1913, right? And it went through several iterations from 1913 to 1958, and then in the 70s it was a different type of theater.
Right. Well, so there's some interesting sort of, first of all, the art, was built, and even when the art was built, there were already a number of theaters in town.
There were like, what, 4 or 5, I believe?
Something like that. And then the Virginia was built soon after. So, and the Orpheum was also built soon after.
Right. So there was, let me see if I get this list right. The Park, then there was the Orpheum, then there was the Virginia, but there's also the High Dive used to be a movie theater as well.
Right.
And then you had the Cinema in Urbana. So that's...
And the Rialto.
Oh, the Rialto, that's
Yeah.
right. And the Rialto is what now?
Is right now, it's really just empty space, but it is still inside, structurally, it's still the movie theater.
So that's about 5 different movie theaters that we just named. So our town was virtually kind of a movie hub.
Exactly. I mean, Champaign-Urbana has always been a big movie, at least in terms of, how many theaters were there for the population. Even for that time, and people went to a lot of movies then because there wasn't as many other options. Even for that time, those were a lot of theaters.
Yeah.
Now, the Park, as you properly called it at the time, was actually kind of the equivalent today of a second-run theater. Pretty soon after the Virginia opened, the same guy owned the Virginia and the Art. The Park. And so what he would do is he would show the films first at the Virginia, and then after a week, they would move it over to the Park and play it there and bring something new into the Virginia. Makes sense. Yeah, it's a good business. And so the Park was always a little bit of sort of the kid brother to the other theaters. It's smaller.
Okay.
Later on, it was the place in the 40s and the 50s where kids could come and watch westerns and cartoons for a nickel for hours. That's the kind of theater it was for a long time.
Well, that's never a bad thing.
No. And it was that until about the late 50s. And then it went through its first big transition. It was bought by a chain called the Art Guild. So they were already called the Art Guild.
Okay.
And they literally took the sign, which was Park, P-A-R-K, took off the P, took off the K, put up a T, and they were done. They kept the same neon letters that were there before that.
And then they did at some point, some construction was done, some rewiring and things of that nature to update it in the 50s. Wasn't that after 58?
That was when the Art Guild came in. And so a lot of what we see in terms of the inside of the theater, the walls, the way those look. As far as we understand, a lot of that was done in the 50s when they did that renovation. There were some other minor renovations. Originally, the lobby was very different. The lobby actually originally had another store, kind of
that's interesting.
within it. Yeah, so there was much smaller lobby because people didn't buy concessions like they do now.
Yeah.
They would buy tickets outside and then just pass through the lobby. So they at some point they opened up that space and made it a bigger lobby. And then really it stayed the same through the 50s and the 60s, and that's when Roger Ebert would go there, and they showed art films. They showed European films. They showed the sort of experimental cinema that wasn't playing anywhere else in Champaign.
Yeah, and I think that's a major draw for me today when I always go to the art theater is like I'm a really huge independent film buff. I love independent film. You asked me to name my favorite directors, at least 2 or 3 of them will be French directors. So, yeah, I can understand where that would come from. In the 70s, it became kind of a very different theater.
Yes, well, it was, you know, it wasn't unique to the park.
Yeah.
There was a period of time in the 70s, mostly starting in the early 70s,
Yeah.
where porno movies became a very good model for movie theater operators. You know, a little bit of the rise of TV
Right.
was going on.
Fair enough.
It wasn't yet VCRs, so there wasn't that kind of competition. But actually, sort of the late 60s, or let's say the early 70s,
Yeah.
was sort of a dead zone of movies to a large extent.
Yeah, I would agree
weren't
with you there.
As many great movies being made all of a sudden. So people realized this great, I mean, they could put on a porno movie and have a line out the door. Because there were some big name, you know, this is when they had Deep Throat and they had other famous ones.
Oh, that's right. That was that
So this was
period.
that time, and it became, you know, these things were like these national topics. And so you show them, and boom, people
Yeah, you've got.
But yeah, then what happened was, there's been some good research done by Perry Morris, who is the historian of the Orpheum.
Okay.
There was actually some court cases. Sometimes people showed these movies simply because they were supposed to be forbidden to do so.
Oh, so
you know, because they said, oh well, we're going to show it anyway as like civil disobedience, and so then there was a court case.
Okay.
Eventually, what happened though is once you start showing these kinds of movies, you get a reputation.
Yeah.
And then you can't go back to showing mainstream movies. They were sort of okay. Well, we'll just continue doing this. Mm-hmm. And it went from here and then very gradually down.
Okay.
You know, and then, you know, by the late 80s, it was really, the building was in pretty much disrepair.
Yeah.
The reputation of the theater was really bad.
Yeah. My friend Paul is the one that actually clued me into the fact that that period existed with the art theater. And when I first heard it, I was like, you're kidding me, right? That seems like the most improbable, impossible thing that would possibly happen to the art theater.
You know, and again, it wasn't unique. I believe the theater that's now the High Dive was showing porn at the same time.
Okay, so it's not uncommon for our town.
At that time, it was kind of common across the whole movie industry. What killed that partly was video, VHS.
Yeah.
You know, once people
realized they could get it into their own homes, it's like, why bother going to the theater for it?
So that dried up entirely. And then what happened in the late 80s is that someone stepped in, they took over the theater, did a lot of work to renovate it. They operated it for about 15 years.
Wasn't that the $15,000 renovations? Was that then? Or no, that was 58 still.
Yeah, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head,
Okay.
but it was, I mean, you know, they cleaned things up. At some point, they brought in new seats with the community. Actually, a lot of people in the community donated money for that.
Okay.
And then there was another big renovation in 2003.
Right.
And that was more of a technical renovation. They redid a lot of the equipment and built the concessions bar as we have it now.
Okay.
So a lot of those renovations are actually pretty recent.
Okay. Yeah. Well, one of the main reasons I asked you here is because you were hunting for a new digital projector.
Yes.
To basically continue showing the fabulous movies you do. You want to tell our audience a bit more about that?
Sure. There's a trend going on from Hollywood to switch to digital projection. And to sort of explain the difference, right now we still show film that you would think of with the sprockets on the side and frame-by-frame pictures and moving through a motor. That's how we show our movies still. Hollywood has stated that they will stop sending out film that way probably in 2013.
Which I find a very sobering idea. The fact that you're stopping this really, really kind of pure form of art in terms of, you know, using film as opposed to going digital with it. It feels a bit of a cheat, you know?
I mean, you're right. The experience is not, I mean, the best analogy that I give to people is with music. Because, you know, you saw the same thing when people moved from records, which are analog, to digital CDs. And you know, there's always going to be a number of people who say, look, the sound is not as good on a CD as it is on a record. There's not a warmth to it. But the flip side is the convenience factor.
Yeah.
You know, CDs are so much easier. You can burn them. You can take them in the seat. You can take them in the car. And so the same thing is true with the movies. You know, digital is a lot easier on a lot of levels. It's much cheaper to send the movies out.
What do you prefer personally?
Well, I prefer, like anybody else, if you put a beautiful new print up there, you know, I'm going to pick that every time.
Yeah.
The challenge is that, you know, we never get new prints.
Mm-hmm.
So really what you're getting is a print that's played at other theaters many times.
Mm-hmm.
So there are scratches and nicks and some
But
people...
that's the beauty of it. That's the history of the film right there.
Yes, yes. Or, you know, I mean, but it is nice to have a nice crisp presentation that looks fabulous.
Okay, I see your point.
And not have little hairs dangling on the top,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, so Hollywood has mandated for us to go digital. For the size theater that we are, like a lot of small theaters around the country, there's not really any funding available.
Mm-hmm.
So the decision we face is to buy a new digital projector or close.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it'll be one or the other. So what we've done is we have formed a cooperative,
Mm-hmm.
which is the big trend that we are trying to achieve here is having the community come together. And we're selling shares to people in the community for $65.
Okay.
And for the $65, you can be a co-owner of the cooperative. And the cooperative is going to then run the theater. And with the money that we're raising, we're going to purchase, it's $80,000. So we're going to purchase...
$80,000?
Yes. It's a big projector.
Wow.
Yes. So we're going to purchase that equipment and have it installed and be able to be operational for many more years.
Okay. Would you be able to tell me how far in your goal you actually are?
Yes. We actually, the projector's $80,000, and we also want to have $20,000 more for cash in the bank.
Mm-hmm.
So our goal is $100,000.
Okay.
And we're at 75.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, we're doing great, but we still need a lot more people to join so that we can make it safely by our July deadline.
How many people? Oh, this July. How many people do you need?
We need about 250 more people.
I think one of the biggest things for me as a patron going to see movies at the art theater is the level of silence. I love it. The level of silence. I recently went a couple of, must have been almost a month ago now, but I went to see We Need to Talk About Kevin. And that film is very, very intense and very, very dark and deep in its themes. And I was sitting there with a friend eating my chocolate chip cookie, and I was just enthralled by being able to watch the movie and the level of silence and the level of respect all the patrons basically showed for the film, which you don't get at multiplexes. The only time you'll get huge gatherings of people at the multiplex for independent film is if it's something that the fathomevents.com people are running. So,
Right,
you know, I
right.
went to see Company when it was at Savoy 16, which you actually showed.
We showed that later too, right?
Yeah. And, you know, the This American Life thing, which is coming up, which I have not been to, but I don't know whether I should go.
I think, I mean, This American Life is actually, it's a wonderful, fun show.
Yeah,
but it's a great point also because there are times where it falls away and it's quiet and, you know, love the Avengers, love Men in Black.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to hear them while I'm watching, you know, We Need to Talk About Kevin.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, the multiplexes is just sort of the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
Movies are so loud, walls are only so thick.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to hear it in the next theater.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I love the tranquility that I get from sitting in my seat. I don't care where I'm sitting in the theater. I could be in the dead back of the theater, and I still get this resounding amount of quiet and this odd, I don't know how to call it, but maybe a level of respect almost for what the auteur, the director, is doing with the film. No matter whether it's good or bad.
Right.
You always get that going to the art, and that's a complete and utter rarity.
I agree. And I think our patrons are really respectful of each other. We never have to go in and tell people to stop talking on their phones or, you know, doing the things that would annoy the other patrons. People are really good about that, and it's a wonderful thing because people are there to appreciate the films.
Yeah.
So you're there with like-minded people who are just there to experience and be immersed in it.
It's almost like your own quiet film appreciation club.
That's right. That's right.
And you don't really get that with the multiplexes, which I think is really, really extraordinary.
Right.
So you've owned the art theater for what, almost 2 years now?
2 years plus,
2
although
years plus?
technically I'm the operator because I don't own the building.
Okay.
I rent the building, but I run the business.
Okay. So what are some of your films that you've seen at the art?
That's a good question. There's actually, the dirty secret is I don't see every movie we show.
I figured that.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, first of all, sometimes we have 4 or 5 movies in a week, but it's just I don't always, unfortunately, have time to sit and watch. The favorite one, my favorite one that I've shown recently is The Artist.
Yeah.
I know it's a little bit of it's a popular movie and all that, but besides the enjoyment level of the film itself, and we showed that movie for 6 weeks, so we probably showed it, 150, 200 times. Every time I was there, I would go down in the audience, and I'm not giving too much away here, but I would go down at the end of the movie, because the end of the movie is really a very special thing. And I would go down there and sit in the audience and just listen to people react to the film, because it really got a reaction out of people, and not every movie does that.
I was surprised that you would say that people got a reaction to the end of the film, because there's another scene somewhat towards the middle where what you're speaking of occurs, and you didn't sense a larger reaction from that initial.
Yeah, but the timing was harder. I could be I knew the music. I could be listening upstairs and know that the ending was coming.
And I think that's one of the things you can really absorb by a movie you love. What movies do you love? That's another great question.
Yes. My tastes are a little more mainstream, personally.
Okay.
I saw The Avengers.
Right.
I'm going to see Men in Black.
I'm curious about Men in Black. I think from what I've heard, it's better than Men in Black 2, but not quite as good as Men in Black 1.
And if it isn't, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
That's I would applaud Barry Sonnenfeld for being able to pull that off.
Yes, I agree.
If you can make it better than Men in Black 2, then my hat is off to you, sir.
One of my employees just told me that the 3D is pretty good.
Yeah.
So I appreciate. I'm not a 3D hater either. I love animated movies in 3D.
Yeah. I will go see those till the day I die.
Yeah. So pretty mainstream taste for a lot of things. My wife and I have a date coming up to go see The Dictator.
I've actually seen that.
Yeah.
It's an interesting film.
Yeah. We enjoyed all of his movies.
Yeah,
so.
you have plenty of reason to laugh if you've enjoyed his previous films. I mean, and I'm not spoiling anything by saying this, but the end, 5 to 7 minutes of the film is what you're going to be the most proud of.
Yeah.
You're going to be like, oh, I wish the rest of the movie had been more like this.
There's a lot of movies like that.
Yeah. I felt like that for The Tree of Life, ironically.
Now, I liked The Tree of Life. The Tree of Life was a very divisive movie.
I did too.
Yeah.
One of the movies that I really want you to show, which I don't know whether you will, because it may turn off like half of your patrons, is Shame.
Shame, we missed the window on. Because
okay.
it's already, I think, out on video.
Yeah.
I tried to show Shame, but what happened was, the nature of the Hollywood schedule is that they bunch the movies up to release them all at the end of the year, so they're all eligible for Oscars.
Yeah.
So come January, February, we've got a ton of movies
that you want to show. Yeah.
And in this case, the rule for showing The Artist was that we had to show it from the beginning. We saw it. We started it in late January.
Okay.
We had to show it all the way through the Oscars. Yes, it was 5 weeks. And we actually wound up showing it 6 weeks.
But you got a lot of money from that, though, I'm sure.
It was great. It was a great success. It was a wonderful film. And we had a lot of people come to the theater who'd never been to the theater, which is always great.
Yeah.
But it did prohibit us from showing other movies, and Shame was one of the ones that didn't get a chance to play.
Well, I will tell you that I absolutely love director Steve McQueen, and I don't know if you've seen his other film, Hunger.
Did not see Hunger.
It's one of those that you really should put on your list.
Yeah? My list is pretty long.
I'm guessing it is, yeah. The other thing that I want to talk to you about is a movie that you're showing upcoming that I am beyond excited about. Like, I'm literally ready to jump out of my seat. Moonrise Kingdom. I cannot tell you how grateful I am that you were showing that film. For those of you who don't know what Moonrise Kingdom is, I can't really give you that accurate of a plot synopsis, but what I can tell you is that it's about two people in love at a summer camp, something similar to Boy Scouts, and it's directed by a very brilliant auteur, Mr. Wes Anderson, which means you will have yet another chance to see Bill Murray doing wacky, crazy things.
Right, right. Yeah, with Wes Anderson movies, it's not even so much about what the movie's about.
Yeah.
It's the characters.
It's
and,
the characters.
And the way that the story is told.
Yeah. And this is also a major film that's been premiered at the Cannes Film Festival.
That's right.
Which
they opened the whole festival with it.
They did open the whole festival with it. And I don't personally think it's going to win, but I'm happy with the fact that it just got put in the category of being,
right.
considered.
Right.
So
yeah, I'm excited about that film too on a lot of levels. Also, it's PG-13.
Yeah.
So it's it's great to have a film that is, and I think it's actually a decent film for teenagers. Mm-hmm. So it's good in the summertime to have a movie that you can take teenagers to, and it's not a big dumb action movie. It's actually, hey, look, this is a really good movie, but I think you might appeal to you too.
Mm-hmm. I think the only film that I've seen from Wes Anderson is The Royal Tenenbaums.
Oh,
which is the only
interesting.
Which is the only one you really need to see.
You didn't see The Fantastic Mr. Fox?
No, I did not. Although I do want to.
Yeah, The Fantastic. I enjoyed that one a lot. And Rushmore. I actually did not care for Rushmore as much as The Royal Tenenbaums.
That was the first one that I looked at when they had the Blockbuster little mini magazines that they used to give you. That's the first one I saw, and I was like, seems interesting, but I'm kind of, I don't know what to make of it.
Yes. Well, we, it's funny, we may play one of his older movies as a late night, so we've been debating internally which one might be show, so stay tuned. And Moonrise Kingdom opens June 29th at the Art.
The other thing I really wanted to talk to you about today is something that I've already talked with Chuck about, but it's always good to have another person's opinion, and that is The Avengers. You said you saw it.
I saw it, yes.
What are your opinions?
My opinions are, I thought it did okay, so let me state like this. I like all film genres. There are very few genres I don't like.
Right.
I think in any movie you judge it by its genre.
Agreed.
Right. So you're not going to judge The Avengers by the same standard that you're judging We Need to Talk About Kevin.
Right.
Right. They're just apples and oranges.
Agreed.
So as a comic book movie, I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for Shakespeare in the Park.
Yeah, no one would be looking for Shakespeare in the Park.
Yeah, I thought Robert Downey. I really love Robert Downey. I think he brings it in every role he's got.
I think he's one of those actors where people think, oh, this dude is totally an a-hole, and I'm thinking to myself, no, this dude is a class act. If you've not seen the movie Chaplin that he was in years ago, check that one out. Or one of my sister's favorites, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. That's a good also one. A really great film.
And relatively recent, too.
Yeah, relatively recent.
Yeah, well, and I think, his character is kind of that. I mean, he's playing a role, and in his character, he's just chosen to take in this direction of, hey, he's a millionaire, playboy, philanthropist, whatever the lines that he rattles off. That's who he is, and and he also happens to be a superhero. Yeah. So one of the things about the Avengers, for example, I liked was that. They did more of the interplay between the characters than you get in most superhero movies.
And that's more because of the director Joss Whedon, who...
Yeah, he writes, he wrote interesting scenes, and, it's one of the... I'm trying to remember, there aren't too many sort of group superhero movies that we've had, X-Men being one of them.
Yeah.
But... It gives you an interesting place to set these scenes because here are a bunch of, unique individuals, but they're kind of peers when you put them in a group.
Yeah, you got character dynamics that you can play with for ages.
Yeah,
Considering, knowing the personalities of these other characters from their previous solo films. I have to ask another question. I'm going to switch off of the Avengers entirely now.
Yeah.
Did you happen to see Tiny Furniture?
I did not see it all the way through.
From what you did see, what did you think?
I liked it. I liked it.
I like it too, but I have problems with the writing of Lena Dunham.
Well, you have to remember she's working with unprofessional actors.
Yeah.
And, and it was her first film.
Yeah.
Again, you sort of have to take all those things into account when you're judging. I mean, it was a quirky film.
It was, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the dialogue was not natural.
It's not really the dialogue that bothered me. It's that she came up with these really honest moments, and then whatever funny thing that she said immediately after that killed all the honesty that she just built up. And that's the same thing that I feel about her HBO series Girls, which, oddly enough, audience, I will confess, I've watched every single episode. And I feel that she can get these honest moments from these characters that feel true to life for the people who are in their early 20s, like I am. I'm in my mid-20s. But at the same time, it feels like as soon as she pulls that joke, all the honesty that she's built up goes away.
Well, maybe that's giving you a window into her character. I mean, there are a lot of people who, when they're in a conversation, will crack jokes to avoid dealing with their own
hard, harsh truth.
Yeah, so maybe that's who she is.
That's another angle to look at it at. Are there any other directors that you really love that we haven't talked about yet?
I'm such a omnivore for movies that I can't say like there's certain people I'll seek out just because they've directed it. So, wow, on the spot. No, nobody special.
Okay.
Just I like them all.
I will say that I love Krzysztof Kieślowski. He's a French-Polish director, and I think his name is Wong Kar-wai.
Okay.
He did this whole 3-film series like In the Mood for Love, 2046, and I think he did this other film called Happy Together.
Okay. I haven't seen
Interesting way to talk about relationships with him. But I also had one final, this is more of almost a blind request than a question. Are you planning at all to play Take This Waltz? Because I'm really curious about that film.
What's Take This Waltz?
It's a movie with, oh gosh, now I gotta remember the name. Michelle Williams, Sir Silverman.
I've read about this one.
Yeah, that one seems interesting, and I like Sarah Polley's work.
Yes.
I like everything that she's done so far, which is shocking because I didn't think I would. I've known her mostly as an actress because she was in this 90s television series, Avonlea. But she really kind of changed and became a bit of an auteur of her own when she started making movies.
It's too far away because I think that one is just premiering in film festivals.
Yeah.
So, the process is the movie has to be picked up by a distributor, Fox Searchlight or Sony Pictures Classics or whoever else, and then they bring it, weeks, months later to the theaters. Okay. So stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Do you have any other final words for our audience about the art theater? Anything that they should know?
No, just I hope that there's people out there who maybe have never been and would take the opportunity to come by and check us out.
All right. Well, until next time, I'm Chike Coleman, and we'll see you right here next time on Real Review Cinematic Underground. See you later.